Good morning and welcome to the Crafty Canary. Today we're going to do our year in review, the top 5 videos of 2024. And what a great year 2024 has been here at the Crafty Canary. It's been our year of the most growth. We were able to get monetized. I was able to hire my son as my video editor, and he's doing a great job. I feel like we've both grown, both making videos and editing videos, and we make a great team. And we want to thank you, our audience, for such a great year that 2024 has been. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. We really appreciate you. So today we're going to count down our top 5 videos of the year. Starting with number 5, the tip on how to repair the binding on a blanket, but it also applied to other things as well. And I notice over the years that a lot of my sewing videos tend to get the most views. So look out in 2025 for more sewing and crafting videos. We'll still do the great household tips, cooking tips, but probably a little bit more on the sewing and crafting end of things. So I hope you enjoyed this top 5 countdown. Have a great day and we'll see you next week. Morning and welcome to the Crafty Canary for your tip on Tuesday. Today I'm going to show you how to sew a binding back on that has come loose in the wash. Now this can happen on something like a blanket. I have this fleece blanket here that the binding has come off, and that's what we'll actually be using today to show you. See how in the wash it's just come off. It's just with one of those chain stitches from the manufacturer, and those just come out super easily. If it's loose at all, it can just come right off, and that's what happened to this blanket of my son's in the wash. It just came right off. So we have about, about 10 inches where we're going to need to sew it back on. But it can happen to something like one of these pot holders like I use on the top of my hanging towels. It can happen on different pieces of clothing, maybe a binding on a shirt. Like this shirt, it might even happen to. This has a binding on the edge here. If that were to come off, I could use this technique to sew that back on. So let me show you an easy, simple way to do it. So the first thing I'm going to do is lay it out on my work table or on a flat surface. If you don't have a work table, you can use your dining room or kitchen table. Just make sure it's clean, and you might even put a cardboard cutting board over that to ensure that it's clean and to give yourself a little bit of working area. But first of all, I've got this long string that came off in the wash, so I'm going to cut that to begin with, and I'm going to go pretty close to where the stitches start. And if you are, which I am an experienced sewer, if you are an experienced sewer, you may be able to just do this at the machine. You may be able to just fold this binding down and stitch as you go. But I highly recommend pinning it, even if you are an experienced sewer, because then you will be sure that you get the top and the bottom both included, because as you pin it, you're going to make sure you go through each side at the top and underneath. When you're doing it at the machine, sometimes you can misjudge a little bit and miss, and then you have to go back and do it again. So to avoid having to go back and do things again, you might take just a little bit of extra time to pin in the beginning. And also, if this were not fleece or synthetic, I would be using an iron if it were cotton or natural fibers, but this especially, fleece you don't generally iron on, and this is very, you can tell just even probably looking at it on the camera that it's very synthetic, and if I were to put an iron to that, it would probably shrink up instantly and destroy it. So we're not going to use an iron in this case, but in a case of something cotton, something natural, I would definitely use the iron. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold in, and you can see that it's still got a lot of the creases where it was folded. So I'm going to fold in this edge. I'm even going to use a pin or two to hold it down. And I've got a pad underneath here between my cover and my table, so the pins will kind of stick. If you have one of those cardboard cutting boards, it will also do that. If not, do it like this. Just lift it up and pin it. But then you have to go in and unpin it, of course. And on this side, I'm going to do the same thing, just kind of give myself some, just to get it to stay under while I'm working with it. So now I will pick it up and pin it, because sticking it into the pad is going to mean I can't move it. That was not real smart, was it? All right, so now I'm going to go and I'm going to put the underside with that part folded underneath, and the edge of the blanket is going to go on the middle of the binding, and come down here and get my pin and put it in, and making sure, oh, see, look, I missed. And you can do that with the machine, and then you don't have the underneath of the binding caught. So it's good that we're pinning. So I'm going to go back and make sure that I catch both edges with that pin. Do the same thing as we continue. My hands are so dry that my fingers are sticking on this yucky fabric. That's no fun. See, we caught it. Okay, now I can take these out, but just make sure that they stay under. Okay, now that I'm near the end, go ahead and take these pins out. I don't want this raw edge showing, so I'm going to turn it under, making sure that the edges of my binding are turned in. Turn that under, and then go to my binding, go to my blanket where the binding is sewn on, and pin it real good. Now, I might want to make sure that that is tucked underneath so I can use my pin, kind of tuck it under, pin it, make sure the underside is good, don't have any raw edges showing. Catch this one and kind of tuck it under. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. I'm taking the pin and the edge that was sticking out there like this, I'm tucking it back up under the binding so that it doesn't show. There we go. All right, let's take it to the machine and sew it down. So here we are back at the machine, and I'm going to find where my stitches ended and where I cut that string. Oops, I just knocked my pressure foot off. That's not good. So I'm finding that, and that's where I'm going to start. And notice that I have 2 stitches that I'm going to have to make, and these are pretty big. I don't know that my stitch length will even get that big, but I'm going to set it on the longest, and it will look a little bit different. Unfortunately, home repairs cannot look exactly like they come from a manufacturer, from a factory, and so we're going to just try to get it as close as we can. We'll make our stitch as big as we can. It probably won't be that big, and my thread won't be exactly the same, but we'll do our best. And as I sew, I'm going to start on the one that's closest to the edge of the binding, to the blanket part, because I want to make sure that everything catches, and then I'll just have my pins out to be able to sew that second stitch. So let's start with the first one. I'm going to match it up as best I can. Hold my end threads. I'm always really sure to hold my end threads. Sorry about my hand in the way there. And come down, making sure that I'm pretty much right where it needs to be. All right, and let's stitch a couple of stitches, back stitch to hold that in good because we don't want it coming out again. And sew, and you can kind of see that there's a little bit of a line where the previous stitches were. So you want to try to sew on that line as much as possible. And sometimes it gets where the edge gets caught up a little in this groove of the presser foot. So when that happens, I want to make sure I stop, lift up my presser foot, put it back down so that I'm not sewing over the top of that. Very carefully and very slowly, making sure that you don't get your fingers in the way. See, I don't know if you can see, but it did it again. So I'm going to lift up that presser foot, push that underneath the presser foot, making sure it stays under there. And it does it a lot when you're sewing binding on, whether you're the one originating the binding or you're replacing binding. It's just part of having that edge so close to that groove of the presser foot, and you just kind of have to keep pressing it under. All right, now I'm coming to my pin that is crosswise here, so I want to make sure I don't sew over that. So I'm going to slowly go up to it, take it out, and I'm to the end of my binding where I had the raw edges turned under. So I'm going to sew a little bit over it and meet the stitch that's still there, back stitch a few stitches and make sure it's going to stay in, and lift up. And we'll cut our threads. And check and make sure that everything looks good on the bottom before you go on. You might have to end up taking some things out, but if so, take the time to do it so that it looks really nice and so that you don't have raw edges and things coming out again in the wash. So mine looks good, so we're gonna go ahead and do the other stitch. Same thing, I'm coming to the point where I cut off that thread. I'm gonna hold my threads, back stitch, and stitch right along where that old stitch was. This one's gonna go a little faster and easier because I don't have that edge that's gonna keep going into that groove in the middle of my presser foot. So here we are. It's back on. It's not perfect. You can kind of see bulgy edges. It would have been easier if I could have ironed it and looked a little bit better. And if I were doing it on a shirt or something that I was wearing, I would have been a little bit more careful. But it's on. It's not going to come off. My son is going to be really happy to have his cozy blanket back because it's been sitting in my mending pile for a long time waiting to do this video. So I hope that has helped. I hope you can sew on a binding maybe that's come off in the wash and that's helpful for you, especially if you're a beginning sewer. If you have any questions, please put them down in the comments, and I'd love to hear your comments on how you fix different things as well, or if you have any other projects you'd like me to do on my channel. Thanks again for watching. Please subscribe and please like this video and come back next time for another great tip on Tuesday. Bye-bye. Good morning and welcome to the Crafty Canary for your tip on Tuesday. Today, let's talk about starch. Do you ever try to starch a dark pair of pants, a dark garment? You spray the starch on, iron it, and you get all these white, nasty flakes on your fabric. Well, I'm going to give you a couple of tips on how to prevent that. The first and easiest is iron your clothes and starch your clothes inside out. Then if there are any flakes, then it will be on the inside. No one will see them. But if you don't want to do that, you can spray your starch on and let it soak in for a minute or two. Doesn't have to be a terribly long time. You still want it to be a little bit damp, but give it some time to soak in, then those flakes will not be there. Now, our mothers, or my mother has told me the story, and my mother-in-law, that when they were younger, they would actually dip the clothing in liquid starch, probably some starch mixed with water, dip them in there after they were clean, roll them up in a towel, and put them in the refrigerator for several hours before they ironed them. That did prevent the starch from flaking. It was the way you starched back then. They didn't have spray starch, but it didn't have the flakes like we do now with the spray starch. You can even adopt that a little bit in your practice now by spraying it really well. Put it in if you have one of those big resealable bags, if it's a big garment, or even a trash bag, but just close it really tight and put it in the fridge for a couple hours. Take it out, iron it. You won't have the flakes like you do when you just spray and iron instantly. Now, another tip I want to give you, it's a little bit expensive, so a little bit odd for me because I know you're really don't want to spend money and really want to save money, but this is worth it to me. If you do a lot of starching on your clothing, which I do on my husband's pants, then you want to have maybe 2 separate irons, one for your starch and one for any clothes that are delicate and you don't want to get that flakiness ever on them. And if you're a seamstress like me, an iron that you just use for sewing and delicate clothing. So one iron, maybe that's not even really that expensive, that you use for your starching iron, and another iron for your delicates and your sewing. So I hope that helps. Let's see how this does. Yes, beautiful. No white flakes at all. I hope this tip was helpful. Please subscribe to my channel, like this video, and come back next time for another great tip on Tuesday. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Good morning and welcome to the Crafty Canary for your tip on Tuesday. Today we're going to talk some more about some household uses for coffee filters. Now these you can buy in a big box store, even in the dollar store for lots of them, maybe 100 or 200 for very cheap. So you know me, I'm very frugal, very cheap, and I like things that don't cost me a lot of money that I can use around the house. So today we're gonna see how well they do polishing up our stainless steel. Now, I have experimented with this, and this is not the greatest tool for shining up your stainless steel, but it will work in a pinch. I prefer to use a stainless steel cleaner, but it does take a lot of time. You've got to get the spray out, you have to spray it, wipe with the grain, then get another cloth and buff it off. You can use these in place of the cloths, but it does take a little bit of work getting the spray out, wiping it. So these will work in place of the cloths when you're using a stainless steel cleaner so that you don't have to throw those in the wash with all that chemical on it. You don't have to do laundry. You can just toss these and they're just really pennies. So it's a good use for that. But you can, when you're in a hurry, when you just need to shine it up a little bit, maybe before guests are coming, but you don't have time to pull out the cleaner and you don't really want to do all of that. You can get a coffee filter folded into quarters like this, and you're going to use it just to clean up this spot. Now I've tried to get an angle where you can see this spot. The light shining on the stainless steel makes it really hard to film the spots on your appliances. They're there, I promise. There's some right here. I hope you can see this and see it come off. Now where people will grab these drawer handles, there's a lot of fingerprints and a lot of spots. So we're going to try to buff those out a little bit, and hopefully you can see it on the video. So here I'm going to work on this one. And again, I might have to take a little bit of time and some elbow grease, but I'm gonna just kind of buff, and really that is helping. I don't know how well you can tell on the video, but that spot is not quite as bad as it was. Let's work a little bit on these fingerprints. I might have to come from underneath this handle because this gets really printed and stained from all the people that get in the freezer, get out the ice cream, get out everything. And it helped a little bit. Still kind of printy, but they work okay. This is not my greatest use for a coffee filter, but it will work in a pinch. So if you need to just buff up your stainless steel real quick, it can help with some fingerprints. Not really any super duper stains. You'd have to get your cleaner out for that. But again, you can use them in place of rags when you're using the stainless steel cleaner. So if you have any great ideas on how to clean stainless steel, please go ahead and put them in the comments. If you have other great uses for coffee filters, also put those in the comments. Thanks so much for watching, and come back next time for another great Tip on Tuesday. Good morning and welcome to the Crafty Canary for your Tip on Tuesday. A while back I made a video on how to make butter more spreadable, and I had several options, and one of them was to take a box grater and grate the butter, and then you had kind of smaller chunks that you could spread more easily, and it worked okay. But if you'll remember from the video, I had a glove on because I was holding the stick of butter to grate it on the box grater and made kind of a mess of my hands as well as the stick of butter. But since I have discovered another great way, another great tip to make butter more spreadable, you don't make a mess of your hands and you don't make a mess of the stick of butter, and it actually spreads a little bit better. We're going to use one of these metal sieves, however you pronounce it, and then we're going to just take it. Now this is a stick of butter right out of the fridge. We're going to take it and we're going to scrape it across the top of the stick of butter. See, I don't even have to touch the stick in order to do this. And these, you can see in the sieve, it's already coming in there, and they're really fine pieces. Really, it's grating it really fine, so it's gonna spread even nicer. And I'm gonna get a pretty good quantity because I like a lot of butter on my bread. So I'm gonna take my knife and I'm gonna get the butter out. Hopefully I won't drop it on the floor. And it comes out pretty nicely too. Can you see it there? And I'm gonna take my piece of sourdough bread that I made. I used wheat flour this time, made some wheat sourdough, but can you see how nice and spreadable that is? It's working so much better than the bigger chunks that I did in that other video. So there we go, nice and spreadable. I hope that you can use that tip, and I hope you will come back next time. I hope you'll subscribe to my channel. Comment if you have any other great tips about how to make cold butter spreadable, and come back next time for another great tip on Tuesday. See you next time. Bye-bye. Good morning and welcome to the Crafty Canary for your tip on Tuesday. Today I have another great tip on coffee filters, these really inexpensive little paper things that we can use for so many other things than just making coffee. So today I want to show you how it can be a cover for your food in the microwave. I have taken one of them and dampened it. I got it wet and wrung it out really well, and I've put it over my bowl. Now, this is not really going to be big enough and work for a huge plate of food, but if you have a bowl, it works really well because wetting it will help it kind of stick to the edges of the bowl, and it's going to give some moisture to your food as well as you heat it up. So we're going to put it over, you can do soup. I've got rice, red beans and rice. Let me get it in there so you can see it. And notice also that I've got my bowl in one of my great bowl koozies. And if you need one of these, head over to thecraftycanary.com to get you some. I don't think I have any more of these cowgirl fabric. I need to get some more of that fabric and make some more because those sold really well. But I have some other fabrics, some Rifle Paper Company fabric that are really cute. So if you need one of those, head over to thecraftycanary.com. But let's put this in the microwave. I'm not going to put it in as much as I would to fully heat it up because I don't want you to have to wait for a minute and a half. But let's just do 10 seconds. Well, let's do enough that it would spatter if it really was cooking that long. So let me clear that, and we'll do 30 seconds, but we'll speed that up with the magic of editing. There's our beep. All right, it's ready to come out. And that coffee filter stayed on really well. It didn't move, and you can see no more, at least any new spatters in my microwave. There might have been a few in there already from previous times, but this kept it nice and clean. So I hope that helps. I hope you can use this tip. Subscribe to my channel for more great tips and come back next week for another great tip on Tuesday. See you next time. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching.